Keep waiting, kid. That chair is probably the most important seat someone like you will ever have.
I have a confirmed appointment, and the board received my documents before the meeting began.
Graham waved him off and walked away. Hours later, Malik finally fell asleep in the hallway chair. Graham stopped behind him and smirked at Preston.
Look at him. He came here pretending to matter, and now he's sleeping like he belongs in a bus station.
They walked into the meeting, still laughing. Neither man knew the teenager they had left sleeping outside was the anonymous investor who had just put $300 million into their company. The glass towers of Halcyon Vector stretched toward the dawn sky like gleaming fingers. Malik Everhart stepped through the revolving doors at 7:45, 15 minutes before his scheduled meeting. His denim jacket hung loose over a crisp white shirt. Dark trousers and clean sneakers completed an outfit that cost less than most people spent on lunch in this building. He carried a slim laptop bag across his shoulder. Inside lay documents that would reshape everything. The lobby buzzed with morning energy. Employees swiped security cards and hurried toward elevators. Malik approached the reception desk, where a middle-aged woman with tired eyes looked up from her computer. "Good morning," Malik said. "I'm here for the 8 o'clock board meeting." She glanced at his clothes. Her expression shifted slightly. "Name?" "Malik Everhart." Her fingers moved across the keyboard. Before she could finish, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Excuse me." A tall man in an expensive charcoal suit strode toward them. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His face carried the confidence of someone who had never been told no. This was Graham Whitlock. Malik recognized him from newspaper photos and company websites. "Are you lost?" Graham's tone dripped condescension. His eyes swept over Malik's clothes like he was examining garbage. Malik kept his voice steady. "I have an appointment at 8. Graham's laugh was cold. "An appointment?" He turned to the receptionist. "Sarah, did someone schedule a tour for local students today?" "Sir, I was just checking. Don't bother." Graham waved dismissively. "Security will handle this." Two guards approached. One was a younger man with nervous energy. The other moved like a predator. Nolan Voss, former military. Scars on his knuckles told stories Malik didn't want to imagine. "There's been a mistake," Malik said calmly. "The only mistake," Graham replied, "is you thinking you belong here." The elevator chimed. A second man emerged, shorter than Graham but carrying the same arrogant energy. Preston Hale, Chief Operating Officer. His suit probably cost more than most people's rent. "Problem, Graham?" Preston's eyes fixed on Malik with obvious disgust. "Just removing some confusion," Graham said. "This young man seems to think he has business upstairs." Preston's smile was ugly. "How exactly did someone like you even reach this floor?" Heat flashed through Malik's chest. "Someone like you." The words hung in the air like poison. "I took the elevator," Malik answered quietly. Preston's face reddened. "Are you getting smart with me, boy?" The word hit like a slap. Boy. Malik had heard it before. Always from men who thought his age and skin color made him less than human. "I'm being honest," Malik said. Voss stepped closer. His presence filled the space like a storm cloud. "Empty your bag." "I have identification." "Empty it. Now." Other visitors passed through security without stopping. Wealthy white men in $1,000 suits walked straight to the elevators. Nobody questioned them. Nobody searched their bags. Nobody called them boy. Malik unzipped his laptop bag. Voss pulled everything out: laptop, documents, phone charger. He examined each item like it might explode. "Where's your visitor badge?" Voss demanded. "I haven't received one yet." Voss looked at Graham. Graham nodded. Voss pulled out a plastic zip tie and secured Malik's bag. "You'll get this back when you leave." The elevator opened again. More investors emerged. Expensive suits, confident handshakes. Graham's entire demeanor changed. His voice became warm, welcoming. "Gentlemen, right on time." They walked past Malik like he was invisible. "I need to speak with someone about my appointment," Malik said. Graham turned back. His face was stone. "You need to learn patience." An older woman appeared beside Graham, Laurel Finch, executive assistant. She carried a tablet and wore the expression of someone trying to prevent disaster. "Sir, I should check the appointment list." "Don't waste your time, Laurel." Graham's voice carried across the lobby. "Some people come into this building every day pretending they belong somewhere they haven't earned." More investors arrived, a parade of wealth and privilege. Each one received Graham's personal attention. Handshakes, smiles, directions to the executive floor. Malik watched them disappear into elevators. A woman in her 50s approached the security checkpoint. She moved carefully, like someone carrying invisible weight. Her clothes were professional but not expensive. Evelyn Shaw, senior safety engineer. Malik had studied every employee profile. She glanced at him briefly. Her eyes held something he recognized: fear. Voss guided her through security without searching anything. She entered the elevator with the investors. "Take a seat," Voss told Malik. He pointed to a single chair against the wall. "Wait there." Malik sat. The chair was uncomfortable. Deliberately so. A message that he didn't belong. Graham gathered the investors near the elevator. Their voices carried across the marble floor. "Amazing what 300 million can accomplish," one man said. "Indeed," Graham replied. "This anonymous investor will transform Halcyon completely." Malik's jaw tightened. His money. His investment. They were discussing his $300 million like Graham had personally delivered it. The elevator doors closed. Graham, Preston, and the investors disappeared upward. Malik remained in his chair under Voss's watchful eyes. 10 minutes passed. 20. 30. Laurel approached cautiously. "Sir, I really should verify your appointment." "Don't bother him, Laurel." Graham's voice echoed from the elevator as he returned. He'd forgotten something. A briefcase sat on the reception desk. He grabbed it and looked at Malik. "Still here?" "I have a confirmed meeting." "With whom?" "The board of directors." Graham's laugh was sharp. "The board?" He shook his head. "You can't just walk into this building and demand to see important people." "I'm not demanding anything." "Good, because demanding won't get you anywhere." Graham stepped closer. His voice dropped to a whisper that only Malik could hear. "People like you need to understand something. This isn't a charity. This isn't a community center. This is a place of business. People like you." Again. Graham returned to the elevator. Before the doors closed, he called out loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Laurel, let him wait until he learns patience." The doors slid shut. Malik sat alone in his uncomfortable chair, watching the minutes tick by on the lobby clock. 9 o'clock came and went. His meeting had started without him. The elevator doors sealed shut with a soft chime. Malik remained in his chair, spine straight, hands resting calmly on his knees. Above him, a security camera tracked his every movement. The red recording light blinked steadily. Minutes crawled by. Through the glass walls of the executive conference room, he could see silhouettes moving around a long table. Graham stood at the head, gesturing with confident authority. The board meeting had begun without him. The conference room door opened. Preston emerged, his expensive suit crisp and tailored. He walked past Malik with deliberate slowness, eyes scanning the teenager from head to toe. "Still waiting?" Preston's voice carried across the lobby. "That's adorable." He approached Laurel's desk, speaking loud enough for Malik to hear every word. "Some kids think, if they dress up and act important, people won't notice they don't belong." Preston glanced back at Malik. "Look at those shoes. Probably bought them at a discount store." Malik's sneakers were indeed inexpensive, clean but not designer. He'd chosen them deliberately. Preston returned to the meeting. Malik counted the minutes. 12, 15. The door opened again. This time Preston brought another executive with him. They stood directly in front of Malik's chair. "See what I mean?" Preston said to his companion. "Kids his age think walking into a corporate building makes them important. Like playing dress-up." The other executive nodded. "Where do they even get the confidence?" "Television, probably. They watch shows about young entrepreneurs and think it's realistic." They laughed together. Malik kept his expression neutral, but his hands formed loose fists in his lap. 20 minutes later, Voss approached. "I need to search your bag again," he announced. "You already searched it." "Company policy, random additional screenings." Malik stood slowly. Voss dumped the contents of his backpack onto the reception desk. Same laptop, same notebooks, same phone charger. "Where's your visitor badge?" "You took it." "That's right. You don't get it back until someone confirms you belong here." Voss's smile was cold. "Resisting another search will result in immediate removal from the building." "I'm not resisting anything." "Good. Stay cooperative." Voss returned the items carelessly. Malik's notebook fell to the floor. He bent to retrieve it, ignoring the camera above him. 30 minutes passed, then 45. Malik rose from his chair and walked toward the conference room doors. 2 guards materialized beside him instantly. "Back to your seat," the first one ordered. "The board is expecting me." "Nobody's expecting you," the second guard said. He placed a firm hand on Malik's shoulder. "Move." When Malik didn't immediately comply, both guards stepped closer. The first one pushed him backward, not violently, but with enough force to send a clear message. Malik returned to his chair. The guards remained nearby, arms crossed. Graham appeared in the conference room doorway, speaking to someone behind him. His voice projected clearly into the lobby. "This happens more often than you'd think," he said to his companion. "Young black men walk into corporate buildings hoping confidence will substitute for credentials. They see successful people and assume they can fake their way into opportunity." The words hung in the air like poison. No direct slur, but the meaning was unmistakable. Malik's jaw tightened, but his expression remained calm. Graham continued his conversation. "They don't understand that real success requires years of hard work, proper education, and legitimate connections. You can't just show up and demand respect." His companion nodded sagely. They disappeared back into the meeting. Malik studied everything around him: badge types, security rotations. The nervous way Evelyn Shaw kept glancing through the glass walls. She'd entered and exited the conference room twice, each time looking more troubled. Employee badges had different colors: blue for executives, green for engineers, red for security, white for visitors, the kind Voss had confiscated. The guards changed positions every 20 minutes. Predictable pattern. Voss supervised from behind the reception desk, but his attention frequently shifted to his phone. An hour became 2. 2 became 3. Through the glass walls, Malik watched Graham stand at the head of the conference table. The CEO's voice occasionally rose loud enough to penetrate the soundproofing. "Gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce that Halcyon Vector has been saved." The room fell silent. Board members leaned forward in their chairs. Graham's chest swelled with pride. An anonymous investor, Everhart Strategic Holdings, has transferred $300 million into our accounts. This investment will stabilize our operations and fund expansion into new markets. Applause rippled through the conference room. Graham basked in the attention, accepting congratulations like he'd personally secured the money. "I negotiated this deal personally," Graham continued, his voice growing stronger. "The investor was impressed by my vision for Halcyon's future." Malik's fingers tightened around the arm of his chair. "More importantly," Graham said, "this investor has agreed to remain completely silent. No interference with our operations. No demands for board representation. They simply trust my leadership completely." When Graham finished speaking, he looked directly through the glass wall at Malik. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Graham's expression held smug satisfaction. "The investor will never challenge his control," Graham had said. Malik reached into his wallet and retrieved a second identification card. He stood slowly, ignoring the guards who moved to intercept him. His hand closed around the conference room door handle. The conference room door opened with a soft click. Malik stepped inside during the height of Graham's celebration. 12 board members sat around the polished mahogany table. Investment bankers occupied the chairs along the wall. Everyone turned toward the interruption. Graham's face flushed red. "What do you think you're doing?" "Security!" Graham shouted. "Remove this kid immediately!" Voss moved toward Malik, but the teenager remained perfectly still. He held a business card between his fingers like a shield. Board Chair Miriam Caldwell squinted at the emblem. Her expression shifted from annoyance to confusion to recognition. "Wait," she said sharply. "Stop!" The golden tree symbol on the card matched the investor documentation spread across the conference table. Everhart Strategic Holdings, the company that had just saved Halcyon Vector from bankruptcy. Malik placed a leather portfolio on the table. "I'm Malik Everhart, founder and sole owner of Everhart Strategic Holdings." The room fell silent. Someone's coffee cup rattled against a saucer. "This morning, my company transferred $300 million into Halcyon's accounts." Malik's voice remained calm despite the stares. "I'm also the creator of Atlas Grid, the traffic prediction platform currently operating in 43 cities." Graham's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Atlas Grid was valued at $4.7 billion after our last funding round," Malik continued. "That makes me America's youngest self-made billionaire." The investment bankers exchanged glances. Several board members reached for their phones to verify the claims. Miriam's face had gone pale. "You've been sitting outside?" "For 3 hours." Malik didn't raise his voice, but his words carried weight. "Your security director confiscated my visitor badge. Your CEO refused to verify my appointment. I was searched, questioned about my credentials, and told that people like me don't belong in corporate buildings." Graham found his voice. "This is ridiculous. He's lying." "Your chief operating officer suggested I was here to deliver food," Malik said. "Multiple employees walked past me laughing. I heard Mr. Whitlock tell his assistant to let me wait another 2 hours." Preston's smug grin had vanished completely. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, suddenly aware that every eye in the room was focused on him. Miriam stood abruptly. "Graham, your authority over this investment is immediately suspended." Her voice shook with controlled fury. "Mr. Voss, leave this room now." The security director hesitated. Graham nodded reluctantly. Voss retreated, but his eyes never left Malik. "Mr. Everhart, please sit beside me." Miriam gestured to the empty chair at her right. "I apologize profusely for this treatment." As Malik took his seat, Preston let out a nervous laugh. "Come on, nobody could have predicted. The hallway security footage has already been backed up to my personal servers," Malik interrupted, "along with the audio recordings from the reception area." Preston's laughter died in his throat. Through the conference room windows, Malik could see reporters gathering in the lobby below. News vans pulled into the parking lot. Someone had leaked the story. Across the table, Evelyn Shaw caught his attention. The safety engineer slid a handwritten note toward him, her hands trembling. Malik glanced down at the paper. The words made his blood run cold. "Your father discovered what this company was hiding. His death was not an accident." Miriam cleared her throat. "The board will now move into private executive session. All non-essential personnel should—" "I'm staying." Malik folded Evelyn's note carefully, his eyes never leaving hers. Ms. Shaw just told me my father's death wasn't an accident. Graham shot to his feet. That's completely inappropriate. This woman has no authority to— Nathaniel Everhart was your father? Evelyn's voice carried decades of buried guilt. Her hands shook as she spoke. I wondered if you were related when I saw your name. The room grew tense. Several board members leaned forward, sensing something crucial was about to unfold. You knew him? Malik's calm facade cracked slightly. Graham told the press my father was a minor contractor who got fired for missing deadlines. Fired for unstable behavior, actually, Graham corrected with a dismissive wave. The man was paranoid, always claiming someone was watching him. Evelyn's face flushed red. That's a lie, Graham, and you know it. Excuse me? Graham's voice turned dangerous. Nathaniel designed the core architecture of our collision avoidance system. Evelyn stood slowly, her fear giving way to anger she'd held for years. Every patent you've claimed credit for was built on his foundation work. Preston laughed nervously. Come on, Evelyn. Don't get emotional about some contractor. He discovered Dominion Protocol. The words left Evelyn's mouth like a confession. The unauthorized remote control function buried inside our safety software. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Graham's face went white. What remote control function? Miriam demanded. Evelyn's voice grew stronger with each word. Someone embedded code that allows external access to vehicle steering, braking, and acceleration systems. Nathaniel found it during a routine safety audit. He was going to report it to federal investigators. This is ridiculous speculation, Graham said quickly. The woman's clearly having some kind of breakdown. He died 3 days before his scheduled meeting with the Department of Transportation. Evelyn turned to face Malik directly. Highway Patrol said his car veered off the road for no apparent reason. No mechanical failure, no medical emergency. The vehicle was destroyed in the crash. Malik felt his chest tighten. What kind of car was he driving? An unregistered Halcyon test vehicle, Evelyn whispered. One that shouldn't have existed in our fleet records. The conference room erupted in shocked murmurs. Several board members began talking at once. Malik's voice cut through the noise like a blade. My investment wasn't purely financial. He looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. I started investigating Halcyon 6 months ago when fragments of my father's coding appeared inside your traffic management patents. Graham slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. You can't just walk in here and accuse— Miriam! Malik turned to the board chair, ignoring Graham completely. I want immediate access to company financial records and safety archives. Everything from the last 5 years. Miriam nodded without hesitation. Granted. Graham, Preston, you're both temporarily removed from operational control pending this investigation. You can't do this. Preston's voice cracked. We have contracts, legal protections. Mr. Everhart's investment agreement gives him controlling voting rights during the transition period, Miriam stated coldly. His decisions supersede yours. Graham's face twisted with rage and humiliation. This is what happens when you let people like him into our building. They come in making wild accusations, disrupting legitimate business. People like me? Malik's voice remained steady, but his eyes flashed dangerously. You know what I mean. Say it clearly, Graham. The CEO's mouth worked silently, realizing he'd walked into a trap. Around the table, board members watched with disgust. Within 20 minutes, Malik sat before 3 computer screens displaying Halcyon's complete financial network. Evelyn guided him through the safety databases while Miriam observed from across the room. Your investment arrived at 9:15 this morning, Evelyn said, pointing to the transfer log. $300 million, exactly as agreed. Malik scrolled through the account activity. His expression darkened with each line he read. $180 million was moved at 9:18. His voice grew quiet. 3 minutes after arrival. Moved where? Miriam asked. Malik traced the digital trail through a maze of shell companies. Each transfer required encrypted authorization codes known only to a handful of people. Cascade Holdings, Summit Financial, Desert Valley Investments. He read the names aloud, his voice growing tighter. All registered in different states, all created within the last 6 months. Evelyn leaned over his shoulder. Can you track who authorized the transfers? Malik clicked on the approval signatures. The blood drained from his face. Each stolen payment bore his own encrypted authorization code, his digital signature, his private security key that only he possessed. And one other person he trusted completely. Malik stared at the screen, his fingers trembling slightly, as he verified the digital signature for the 3rd time. The mathematical algorithms were perfect, flawless. No hacker could have duplicated this level of encryption without direct access to his private authorization key. This is impossible, he whispered. Miriam stepped closer. What did you find? The authorization codes are genuine. Malik's voice was barely audible. Someone used my actual security key to approve these transfers. Company counsel, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Wells, peered at the data. How many people have access to those codes? 2. Malik felt sick. Me and my financial mentor, Roland Vance. Evelyn's face went pale. Roland Vance? The investment advisor? He's been guiding my portfolio since my father died. He helped structure this entire Halcyon investment. Malik's hands moved quickly across the keyboard, implementing emergency financial locks. But Roland would never. Graham leaned forward with a cruel smile. Or maybe you staged this whole thing. Transfer the money yourself, then pretend it was stolen. Creates the perfect excuse to seize control of Halcyon at a discount. You're insane, Malik snapped. Am I? Young billionaire plays victim, gains sympathy, takes over a company he's been investigating for months? Graham's voice grew louder. Sounds like a very sophisticated con to me. Miriam slammed her hand on the table. Graham, that's enough. But Malik wasn't listening. His fingers flew across the laptop, building digital walls around Halcyon's remaining assets. He isolated the compromised servers, rerouted security protocols, and activated emergency voting procedures buried deep in the investment agreement. What are you doing? Patricia asked. Protecting what's left. Malik's voice was cold, focused. Under Section 12 of the emergency provisions, I'm assuming direct operational control. All financial transfers now require my physical presence and biometric confirmation. Outside the conference room, reporters had gathered in the lobby. Their cameras captured every moment as news broke that Graham Whitlock had spent 3 hours humiliating the 19-year-old billionaire whose investment had just saved his company. The footage spread across social media within minutes. Graham's arrogant dismissal, the security searches, Malik waiting patiently in the hallway while wealthy investors walked past him. The public scandal was complete. Graham's reputation lay in ruins, but victory crumbled in the next breath. Malik! Evelyn's voice cracked with panic. She was staring at her own laptop, watching lines of code disappear in real time. The Dominion protocol files are being deleted. Someone's accessing the safety archives remotely. Malik spun toward her screen. Critical data vanished even as they watched. Vehicle logs, test results, crash analyses dissolving into digital nothing. Can you stop it? I'm trying, but... More files disappeared. They have administrator access from outside the building. Save whatever you can. Copy everything to isolated storage. Malik's mind raced through possibilities. How much time do we need? 20 minutes, maybe 30. Graham stood slowly, smoothing his suit jacket. His expression had shifted from rage to something colder, more calculating. "Well, this has been educational, but I have other appointments." He walked toward the door, then paused. His phone buzzed with a text message. Graham read it, smiled slightly, and typed a quick response. "Meeting over. Kids getting too close. Make him understand he should walk away." He hit send and slipped the phone back into his pocket. "Evelyn," Malik said, still focused on the computer screens, "where did you store the original evidence? The files about my father's work?" "My car. Underground parking garage, level B2. I have encrypted drives hidden in the trunk." "Then that's our next stop." As the sun set behind the downtown skyline, Malik and Evelyn rode the elevator down to the parking garage. Neither noticed the black SUV following them from the building. Neither saw Nolan Voss reviewing the floor plans on his tablet, positioning his 3 security officers between the concrete pillars where the overhead cameras couldn't see them. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Malik stepped into the dim, echoing space of level B2, completely unaware that they were walking into a trap. The elevator doors slid open with a mechanical whisper. Malik stepped into the dim parking garage, fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows between concrete pillars. The air smelled of motor oil and exhaust fumes. His footsteps echoed against the low ceiling as he walked beside Evelyn toward her silver sedan. "Third row, near the wall," she said, fumbling with her keys. "I parked where the cameras can't see the trunk." That should have been their first warning. Nolan Voss emerged from behind a concrete support beam like a predator stepping into moonlight. His black tactical clothing made him nearly invisible in the shadows. 2 security officers flanked him, blocking the path to Evelyn's car. "Going somewhere?" Voss's voice carried the flat authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Malik stopped walking. His eyes swept the garage, calculating distances, mapping escape routes. 3 men, limited visibility, no immediate witnesses. "We're leaving," Malik said calmly. "Step aside." Voss smiled without warmth. "You've got something that belongs to the company. Hand over the drives." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do, kid." The officer on Voss's left was younger, maybe 30, with the build of someone who spent serious time in the gym. "Rich boy thinks he can buy respect with daddy's money." "Except daddy's dead," the third man added. He was older, graying at the temples with scars on his knuckles. "Makes you wonder how a 19-year-old black kid really got all that cash. Maybe the FBI should look into your business practices." Malik felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the same rage that had burned in him during the meeting upstairs. But rage without control was worthless. He forced his breathing to slow, his muscles to relax. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "call building security." She reached for her phone. The younger officer moved faster, slapping it from her hands. The device skittered across the concrete, its screen cracking against a tire. "Oops," the man said. "Guess you'll have to handle this yourself." Voss stepped closer, close enough that Malik could smell his cologne mixed with coffee breath. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us those drives. Then you're going to walk away from Halcyon and never come back. Rich kids like you have other toys to play with. And if I refuse? Then we help you understand that some lessons can't be bought." The 3 men spread out, trying to surround him. Malik backed toward the narrow space between 2 parked cars, a white SUV and a black sedan. The gap was maybe 4 feet wide. Perfect. His father had taught him to box in their garage, using a heavy bag suspended from the ceiling joists. "Distance and timing," Nathaniel had said. "Make them come to you one at a time." The younger officer charged first, throwing a wild right hook. Malik slipped the punch, stepped inside, and drove his left fist into the man's solar plexus. The officer doubled over, gasping, and stumbled backward into the SUV's door. The older man tried to grab Malik from behind, reaching around his neck. Malik caught the man's wrist, twisted sharply, and slammed the arm against the sedan's doorframe. Bone met metal with a sickening crack. The officer screamed and fell to his knees, clutching his fractured wrist. But Voss had been watching, studying Malik's movements. He feinted left, then dove low, tackling Malik around the waist. They crashed onto the concrete together, Malik's head bouncing off the rough surface. Stars exploded behind his eyes. Voss rolled on top, pinning Malik's shoulders. His fist connected with Malik's ribs once, twice, 3 times. Each blow drove the air from his lungs. "You think being rich makes you special?" Voss grabbed Malik's throat with both hands, squeezing until black spots danced at the edges of his vision. "You think money makes you untouchable?" Malik clawed at Voss's hands, fighting for air. His lungs burned. The garage spun around him. Then car alarms erupted throughout the garage. Evelyn stood beside her sedan, frantically pressing key fobs she'd pulled from her purse. The Honda's horn blared. The Toyota's siren wailed. The Mercedes flashed its lights in strobing patterns. "What the hell?" Voss loosened his grip. Footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Voices called out, asking what was happening. A flashlight beam swept across the concrete. Voss released Malik's throat and stood quickly. Blood trickled from Malik's split lip onto the garage floor. His ribs screamed with each breath. "This isn't over," Voss said. He reached into Evelyn's purse, which had fallen during the struggle, and pulled out one of the encrypted storage drives. "Tell anyone about this, and next time there won't be witnesses." The 3 men disappeared into the shadows as employees began emerging from the stairwell. Malik pushed himself to his hands and knees, coughing, tasting copper in his mouth. 20 minutes later, paramedics crouched beside Evelyn's car, checking Malik's pupils with a small flashlight. His lip had swollen, and dark bruises were already forming along his ribs. "You should go to the hospital," the female paramedic said. "Possible concussion, definitely some cracked ribs." Malik shook his head carefully. "I'm fine." "Sir, you were unconscious for—" "I'm fine." He stood slowly, wincing. "Evelyn, we're leaving through the main lobby. Make sure every security camera sees us." She understood immediately. Let the world see what Graham Whitlock's security team had done to a 19-year-old investor. Let the footage speak for itself. As they walked toward the elevator, Malik wiped blood from his chin with his sleeve. One storage drive was gone, but they still had the others. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The fluorescent lights in Malik's downtown office cast harsh shadows across his swollen face. Danica Rowe pressed an ice pack against his split lip with steady hands, her movements precise and clinical. "Hold still," she said, dabbing antiseptic on the cuts along his jaw. "This is going to sting." Malik winced, but didn't pull away. The pain helped him focus. On the wall-mounted monitor, security footage from Halcyon's garage played in slow motion, Voss's fist connecting with Malik's ribs. The moment his head struck concrete, the way the 3 men scattered when the car alarms began. "This footage is our insurance policy," Danica said, securing a bandage over the worst cut. "Assault, battery, attempted kidnapping. Graham just handed us everything we need to destroy him in court." Evelyn sat hunched over her laptop at the conference table, fingers flying across the keyboard. "The deletion protocols are still running," she said without looking up. "They're wiping server logs in real time. By morning, there won't be any digital evidence left." Malik's phone buzzed. Samuel Greer's name appeared on the screen. "You said it was urgent." Samuel's gravelly voice carried years of cigarettes and disappointment. "I'm downstairs." 10 minutes later, Samuel pushed through the office doors carrying a weathered briefcase. At 62, he moved like a man who'd spent decades chasing leads that powerful people didn't want followed. His gray hair was cropped short, military style, and his eyes held the weary intelligence of someone who'd seen too much corruption go unpunished. "Malik Everhart." Samuel studied the young man's bruised face. "You look just like your father. You investigated his death?" "Tried to." Samuel set his briefcase on the table and clicked it open. Federal Transportation Safety Board pulled me off the case after 2 weeks. Said it was cut and dried mechanical failure. He spread dozens of photographs across the conference table. Twisted metal, shattered glass, a vehicle wrapped around a concrete barrier at impossible angles. Your father's car received external commands 17 seconds before impact, Samuel said, pointing to a close-up of the vehicle's computer module. Speed increased from 45 to 87 miles per hour. Steering locked hard left. Brakes disabled completely. Evelyn leaned forward, studying the photographs. That's Dominion Protocol. It can redirect any connected vehicle without leaving standard diagnostic codes. Samuel nodded grimly. I tried to tell my supervisors. They said I was seeing conspiracies where none existed. Forced retirement with a damaged pension. Danica picked up one of the crash scene photos. This proves external manipulation. Combined with tonight's assault, we have grounds for an emergency preservation order. How long do we have? Malik asked. Hours, not days. Evelyn's fingers never stopped typing. The deletions are accelerating. They're not just removing evidence. They're rewriting the base code to make it look like the system never existed. Malik stood carefully, his ribs protesting. Then we divide the work. Evelyn, find the original Dominion source code before they scrub it completely. Samuel, trace those shell companies. Follow every transfer, every payment, every connection back to Graham. He turned to Danica. We need that preservation order before dawn. Federal judges, emergency motions, whatever it takes. And you? Danica asked. I'm going to find out how they got my authorization codes? Malik's voice carried cold determination. Someone inside my own system betrayed me. I want to know who. Samuel was already spreading financial documents across the table, connecting names and dates with red string like a detective from an old movie. This goes deeper than corporate fraud, he said. Your father found something that scared them enough to kill for it. The office settled into focused silence. Coffee cups multiplied on desks. Phone calls were made to judges and federal contacts. Computer screens glowed with financial records and code fragments. Shortly before midnight, Samuel straightened in his chair. Found something, he said quietly. The others gathered around his laptop. On the screen, bank records showed a series of payments from Meridian Holdings, one of the shell companies, to various law firms and insurance agencies. 17 settlements, Samuel said, scrolling through the transactions, all for unexplained vehicle deaths, all paid within the last 3 years. The names scrolled past. Jennifer Martinez, age 29, highway accident. Robert Kim, age 43, single car crash. Angela Foster, age 36, mechanical failure. 17 families who'd lost someone to Dominion Protocol. 17 murders disguised as accidents. Nathaniel wasn't the first, Malik said, his voice barely above a whisper. He was just the first one smart enough to figure out what was happening. Evelyn's face had gone pale. How many more victims don't we know about? How many deaths did they hide before they started paying settlements? The weight of it settled over the room like smoke. This wasn't about corporate greed or stolen patents. It was about a conspiracy that had turned autonomous vehicles into weapons, then covered its tracks with money and silence. Samuel closed the laptop slowly. Now we know what we're really fighting. The clock's red numbers burned past midnight as evidence of systematic murder spread across their screens. Samuel connected financial records to death certificates, while Evelyn cross-referenced accident reports with Dominion Protocol access logs. Each discovery made the conspiracy more horrifying. Jennifer Martinez was an environmental lawyer, Evelyn read from her laptop. She'd been investigating toxic waste dumping by one of Meridian Holdings' subsidiary companies. Single-car accident on Highway 101, supposedly due to brake failure. Samuel tapped his screen. 2 days before she died, someone accessed Dominion Protocol using authorization code 77 Alpha. The system shows her vehicle's brake assistance was remotely disabled at exactly 11:47 p.m. Malik stared at the timestamps. Cold precision, no emotion, no hesitation. They turned our safety system into an execution method. Robert Kim was a city councilman in Phoenix, Danica added, scrolling through legal documents. He'd been blocking a casino development worth $400 million. Crashed into a concrete barrier on the interstate. The police report says he fell asleep at the wheel. Dominion logs show his steering was overridden for 18 seconds, Evelyn said quietly. Just long enough to aim him at that barrier. The pattern emerged like a disease spreading through data. 17 victims. 17 people who'd threatened someone's profits or exposed someone's crimes. 17 families told their loved ones died in tragic accidents. Angela Foster was investigating insurance fraud, Samuel continued. She'd identified a network of fake claims worth $60 million. Her car went off a bridge during what police called a mechanical malfunction. Malik's hands clenched into fists. Dad built collision avoidance technology. He spent years perfecting algorithms that could predict and prevent accidents 3 seconds before they happened. They perverted everything he worked for. The stolen money leads to 12 different shell companies, Samuel said, highlighting bank transfers on his screen, but they all trace back to the same source, Meridian Holdings, and Meridian's primary investor is... He paused, looking uncomfortable. Who? Malik demanded. Vance Capital Management. The name hit like a physical blow. Roland Vance. The man who'd guided Malik through his father's funeral, who'd helped him invest his first $1 billion, who'd become the closest thing to a father figure Malik had left. That's impossible, Malik said. Roland has been helping me since Dad died. He raised the investment capital for my traffic software. He's the one who taught me how to protect my assets from corporate raiders. Danica's voice was gentle but firm. Malik, the evidence doesn't lie. $180 million of your money went through Vance Capital's accounts before disappearing into those shell companies. Roland wouldn't. Malik started, then stopped. The financial records were undeniable. Transfer authorizations bearing his digital signature. Routing numbers that matched Vance Capital's primary accounts. Maybe there's an explanation, Malik said weakly. Someone could have hacked his system, used his accounts without permission. Samuel shook his head. These transfers required biometric confirmation, fingerprint and retinal scans. Roland approved every single transaction personally. The betrayal felt worse than the beating in the parking garage. Physical violence was honest. This was something deeper. Trust, weaponized against him. Roland had held Malik while he cried at Nathaniel's funeral, had celebrated when Malik's first company went public, had been there for every milestone, every decision, every moment when Malik needed guidance. I need to hear it from him, Malik said finally. Danica warned, don't reveal what we know. If he's involved, confronting him directly could put all of us in danger. Malik pulled out his phone and dialed Roland's private number. The call connected after 2 rings. Malik? Roland's voice carried its usual warmth. It's rather late for business calls. The situation at Halcyon is getting complicated, Malik said carefully. Graham and his people are making serious accusations. They're claiming I authorized financial transactions I never approved. Corporate desperation, Roland replied smoothly. Graham is scrambling to shift blame before the board removes him completely. Don't let his panic distract you from your real objectives. Someone transferred $180 million without my knowledge. I'm aware of the discrepancy, Roland said. My team has been tracing the unauthorized access. We'll recover every dollar. I promise you that. Malik felt a flicker of relief. Maybe there was an innocent explanation after all. The best course now is strategic withdrawal, Roland continued. Let me handle the financial recovery while you distance yourself from Halcyon completely. Graham's people are dangerous when cornered. You think I should abandon the investigation? I think you should trust the adults who care about your future. Roland's tone remained patient, almost paternal. Your father's death was tragic, but pursuing conspiracy theories won't bring him back. It will only destroy everything you've built. Malik's grip tightened on the phone. Something in Roland's voice had shifted. Too controlled, too rehearsed. "Where are you calling from?" Malik asked suddenly. "My home office. Why?" But Malik was already pulling the call's audio data through his phone's analysis software, isolating background frequencies and ambient sound patterns. The others watched as he connected his device to the computer and ran the audio through several filters. A low mechanical hum became audible beneath Roland's words. Then, the distinctive whine of server cooling fans running at high capacity. Malik's blood turned cold. He recognized that specific frequency pattern. He'd heard it during his tour of Halcyon's headquarters, the sound signature of the company's private server room. Roland wasn't calling from his home office. He was inside Halcyon's supposedly locked headquarters, standing next to the very computers that contained Dominion protocol. The sunrise painted Halcyon's glass towers in brilliant orange as Danica held up the Federal Preservation Order. The document carried the weight of Judge Morrison's emergency signature, issued at 5 in the morning after she reviewed the evidence Malik's team had compiled through the night. Every server, every backup drive, every piece of digital storage in this building is now under federal protection, Danica announced to the security guards blocking the entrance. Anyone who interferes faces obstruction charges. Behind her stood 3 federal financial agents, their badges gleaming in the early light. Board Chair Miriam Caldwell walked beside them, her face grim with the weight of discovering how thoroughly Graham had corrupted the company she'd helped govern for 15 years. Graham met them in the lobby, his usual arrogance replaced by desperate calculation. "This is corporate harassment. My attorneys will have this overturned before lunch." "Your attorneys can't override a federal preservation order," Agent Martinez replied coldly. "Step aside." The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like ascending toward judgment. Malik watched the floor numbers climb, remembering his first visit when security had treated him like an unwelcome stranger. Now he returned with the full authority of federal law behind him. Evelyn's hands shook as she accessed the protected servers. They tried to wipe the Dominion logs, but fragments remain in the backup cache. She whispered to Malik, "Look at this timestamp sequence." The data painted a horrifying picture. 17 separate incidents over 4 years, each crash preceded by Dominion activation codes, each victim's vehicle remotely overridden in the final moments before impact. Nathaniel's crash appeared in the logs as Field Test 7, subject unaware of system engagement. Samuel cross-referenced the financial records with Shell Corporation databases. Every payment traces back to the same offshore network. Roland Vance Financial manages the primary accounts. Malik's chest tightened, but he pushed the implications away. Evidence first, emotions later. Miriam called the emergency shareholder hearing for 2 o'clock. "This board will vote on Graham's removal within the hour," she declared. The shareholders deserve to know how their investment was weaponized. The boardroom filled quickly. Shareholders, journalists, and federal observers packed every available seat. Malik stood at the head of the table where Graham had once humiliated him, now holding documents that would destroy the man's career forever. Halcyon Vector's collision avoidance system contains hidden override capabilities, Malik began. This technology, called Dominion Protocol, has been used to cause at least 17 fatal crashes. The victims include my father, Nathaniel Everhart, whose name was erased from the patents he helped create. Graham's face had turned ashen, Preston sat beside him, sweat beading on his forehead. The evidence shows systematic murder disguised as automotive accidents, Malik continued. Federal investigators have traced payments totaling $47 million to executives who sold access to this killing system. The board voted unanimously. Graham was removed as CEO effective immediately. Preston was suspended pending criminal investigation. Employees gathering outside the conference room burst into applause when Malik announced that Nathaniel's name would be restored to every patent he'd contributed to. Federal agents moved through the lobby like avenging angels. Graham watched them approach, his shoulders sagging in defeat. The man who had made Malik wait in humiliation for 3 hours now faced handcuffs and federal charges. Malik felt the satisfaction of methodical justice served. His investigation had succeeded without requiring violence or revenge. The truth had been enough. Then the elevator doors opened. Roland Vance stepped into the lobby carrying a leather portfolio thick with documents. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his expression concerned but determined. He moved with the confident authority of someone delivering crucial evidence rather than fleeing prosecution. "Agent Martinez," Roland called out. "I'm Roland Vance, financial advisor to Malik Everhart. I need to provide critical information about this investigation." Malik's blood chilled. Roland wasn't supposed to be here. He'd specifically told his mentor to stay away from Halcyon until the federal case concluded. Roland opened his portfolio and handed documents to the lead agent. "I discovered evidence that my client has been using his Atlas Grid traffic system to control Dominion Protocol remotely. I believe his grief over his father's death led him to orchestrate these crashes himself." The lobby fell silent. Reporters turned their cameras toward Malik. Board members stared in shock. "This is fabricated," Malik said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. Agent Martinez studied the documents Roland provided. These appear to show Atlas Grid communication protocols embedded within Dominion. Your authorization codes, Mr. Everhart. Your digital signatures. "I never signed those," Malik protested. "I tried to guide him away from this path," Roland said sadly. "But his obsession with avenging Nathaniel consumed him. I can no longer protect a client who uses his technology to commit murder." The federal agents stepped away from Graham and moved toward Malik instead. "Malik Everhart, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and financial fraud." The handcuffs closed around Malik's wrists before the employees who had just applauded his victory. Cameras flashed as agents announced his assets would be seized immediately. Graham watched from across the lobby, no longer defeated, but smiling with cruel satisfaction. The federal interview room felt like a concrete tomb. Malik sat across from Agent Martinez while the overhead light buzzed like an angry wasp. His wrists ached from the handcuffs they'd finally removed after 3 hours of questioning. "The evidence is overwhelming," Martinez said, sliding documents across the metal table. "Your authorization codes are embedded throughout Dominion Protocol. Your Atlas Grid timestamps match 17 fatal crashes perfectly." Malik studied the papers with growing horror. His genuine security keys stared back at him. His actual digital signatures appeared on fund transfers he'd never authorized. The dates and times were accurate down to the second. "I didn't create these," he said. "Someone with your exact access credentials did." The door opened and Danica Rowe entered like a force of nature. Her briefcase hit the table with authority that made Martinez lean back in his chair. "Agent Martinez, I'm Danica Rowe, Mr. Everhart's attorney. This arrest is based on fabricated evidence, and I can prove it. Ms. Rowe, the forensic analysis is conclusive." "No, it's not." Danica opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "These documents show that the files used in your warrant were uploaded to Halcyon servers after your team had already sealed them for evidence preservation. Someone violated a federal court order to plant this evidence." Martinez frowned. "That's impossible." The servers have been under continuous federal supervision. Check the metadata yourself. Files bearing today's timestamp appear in directories that were locked down yesterday morning. Either your agents are incompetent, or someone with administrative access committed a federal crime to frame my client. While Danica dismantled the prosecution's case, Roland Vance sat across from Graham Whitlock in a private room at the Meridian Club. Graham's shoulder was bandaged from where a federal agent had tackled him during the initial arrest. His eyes burned with rage and humiliation. "This wasn't the plan," Graham snarled. "You said I'd be protected." Roland poured himself scotch with steady hands. "You were never my partner, Graham. You were my public face, a loud, arrogant fool who could draw attention while I operated in shadows." Graham's face went pale. "What are you talking about? I financed your takeover of Halcyon 15 years ago. I helped you steal Nathaniel's patents and claim credit for his work. When Nathaniel threatened to expose Dominion Protocol, I arranged his accident." Roland's voice carried no emotion. "Later, I became that brilliant boy's mentor, so I could monitor his fortune and control any investigation into his father's death. You killed Nathaniel Everhart. I eliminated a problem, just as I'm eliminating you now." Graham tried to stand, but Roland's security detail appeared at his shoulders. Large men with cold eyes and expensive suits. "The federal case against Malik will collapse within hours," Roland continued. "But I need the original test vehicle's black box destroyed before anyone finds it. Evelyn Shaw knows where it's hidden." "What does that have to do with me?" "Nothing. You're finished, Graham. Voss is handling Evelyn while I prepare your replacement as chief scapegoat." Back in the interview room, Danica had Agent Martinez backed into a corner. Her evidence was undeniable. The warrant relied on files that couldn't have existed when it was signed. "Release my client immediately," she demanded, "or explain to a federal judge why your agents violated a court order to fabricate evidence." Martinez spoke quietly into his radio. Minutes later, the door opened and another agent nodded. "Mr. Everhart, you're free to go. But don't leave the city." Malik walked out of the federal building at 11:47 p.m. The night air tasted like freedom, but his relief lasted only until Danica's phone buzzed. "It's Samuel," she said, answering immediately. Evelyn never arrived at the safe house. Her car was found abandoned on Highway 15. They drove through empty streets toward the location Samuel provided. Evelyn's silver Honda sat on the shoulder with its driver door hanging open. The interior light illuminated blood on the steering wheel. Malik's hands shook as he searched the vehicle. A piece of paper was wedged under the passenger seat. His name was written in shaky handwriting across the top. The message was brief. "Desert Testing Facility. Come alone. You have until dawn." Danica grabbed his arm. "This is a trap." Before Malik could respond, his phone buzzed with an incoming video call from an unknown number. He answered, and Roland Vance's face appeared on the screen. But the camera pulled back to show Evelyn Shaw bound to a chair in what looked like an enormous hangar. Her face was bruised, and her eyes were filled with terror. Industrial lights cast harsh shadows across concrete floors and rows of test vehicles. "Hello, Malik," Roland said calmly. "I believe you've found my invitation. Ms. Shaw is quite comfortable, as you can see. She'll remain that way as long as you bring every copy of Nathaniel's evidence to the desert facility before sunrise." The video feed showed Voss standing behind Evelyn's chair, his hand resting on her shoulder like a promise of violence. "Come alone," Roland continued. "Bring no weapons, no backup, and no recording devices. If I detect any deception, Ms. Shaw will join your father in whatever afterlife awaits failed engineers." The call ended, leaving Malik staring at his reflection in the darkened screen. They drove through downtown Denver in Samuel's unmarked sedan, the federal building's lights fading behind them. Malik sat in the back seat, his wrists still bearing red marks from the handcuffs. The taste of injustice burned in his throat. "The warehouse is 15 minutes away," Samuel said, checking his mirrors. "We can plan Evelyn's rescue there without worrying about surveillance." Danica navigated through sparse, late-night traffic. "Roland won't expect us to move this quickly. He thinks you're still locked up." Malik opened his laptop and began connecting to Atlas Grid. "He's been watching us for months. He knows exactly—" The traffic light ahead turned red without warning. Then the next one. And the next. "That's not normal," Danica muttered, slowing the car. Malik's fingers flew across his keyboard. Every signal between here and the warehouse just switched to red. Someone's controlling the traffic grid. A black Halcyon sedan pulled into their lane from a side street. Its windows were dark. No driver was visible behind the wheel. "Autonomous vehicle," Samuel said grimly. "Roland's using Dominion protocol." Two more driverless cars emerged from parking lots on either side of the street. They moved with mechanical precision, forming a loose triangle around Samuel's sedan. Their headlights cut through the darkness like predators' eyes. A delivery truck lurched from an alley directly into their path. "Hold on!" Danica yanked the wheel left, tires screaming against asphalt. The truck's bumper missed their front end by inches. She accelerated down a narrow side street while the autonomous vehicles adjusted course to follow. Malik's laptop screen filled with traffic data from across the city. "I'm connecting to the municipal grid. If Roland can control these vehicles, I can predict where they're going." "Can you stop them?" Samuel asked, wincing as another driverless car slammed into their rear bumper. "No, but I can see their routes before they execute them." Malik's eyes moved rapidly across scrolling code. "Turn right at the next intersection, now." Danica spun the wheel. Behind them, the three pursuing vehicles had already begun turning before she completed the maneuver. "They knew we'd go right," she said, her voice tight with fear. "Because Roland's system calculated it," Malik replied. "But Atlas Grid processes traffic patterns faster than Dominion protocol updates. I can see their next moves 3 seconds before they happen." The lead sedan accelerated toward their left side. Malik watched its projected path appear on his screen. "Sharp left into that construction zone," he commanded. "Trust me." Danica swerved between orange barriers onto a torn-up street. The sedan shot past them, unable to course-correct quickly enough. Construction equipment forced the narrow road into a single lane barely wide enough for their car. "Dead end ahead," Samuel warned. Malik's screen showed him the answer. "Underground tunnel. Loading dock entrance, on the right." They plunged down a concrete ramp into darkness. Behind them, the autonomous vehicles couldn't follow. Their programming wouldn't allow entry into unauthorized areas. But Roland's system was learning. "He's rerouting them," Malik said, watching new paths appear on his display. "They'll intercept us when we exit." The tunnel stretched beneath downtown Denver's business district. Fluorescent lights created harsh pools of illumination between long stretches of shadow. Their engine noise echoed off concrete walls. "How many exits?" Danica asked. Malik studied building schematics overlaid on his traffic map. 4. But they'll have vehicles waiting at 3 of them within 90 seconds. "And the 4th? "Service road behind the federal courthouse. Leads to a gated loading yard." Samuel checked his watch. "Can we make it before they reposit?" Their car shuddered as something struck the roof. A piece of concrete crashed onto their windshield, spiderwebbing the glass. "They're dropping debris from storm drains," Malik realized. "Roland's accessing the city's infrastructure grid." More chunks of concrete tumbled from overhead openings. Danica accelerated through the obstacle course, dodging falling debris while following Malik's navigation commands. "Exit ramp ahead," he announced. "Gun it straight up." They burst from underground into the pre-dawn darkness. 2 Halcyon vehicles were already waiting in the street, positioned to block their escape routes. But Malik had anticipated this. Hard right through that alley. The narrow passage led to a loading dock behind the courthouse. Malik had guided the pursuing vehicles into his own trap. As the 2 sedans entered the alley, he remotely activated the steel security gate. It slammed shut behind them with a metallic crash. "They're locked in," Samuel said with satisfaction. Danica drove through empty streets toward the warehouse. Samuel pressed a bloodied hand to his shoulder where debris had struck him during the tunnel chase. 20 minutes later, they reached Samuel's secure warehouse. Inside, Malik spread blueprints of the desert testing facility across a metal table. The compound covered 12 acres of Nevada wasteland, surrounded by double fencing and motion sensors. "Evelyn's being held in the main hangar," he said, pointing to the largest structure. "But rescuing her isn't enough. Roland will disappear the moment we extract her. He'll resurface somewhere else with new identities and cleaner operations." Danica studied the facility layout. "What are you suggesting?" Malik met her eyes. "We expose him publicly while we're inside the compound. Force him to confess on camera where he can't control the transmission." The warehouse smelled of motor oil and old metal. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Malik spread digital blueprints across the workbench. His laptop displayed live satellite feeds of the desert facility 60 miles southeast of Las Vegas. 24 cameras, he said, marking positions on the printout. Motion sensors every 50 feet along both fence lines. 3 automated gates with biometric scanners. Danica leaned over his shoulder, studying the security grid. "How do we get past all that?" "We don't go through it." Malik highlighted a thin line running beneath the compound's eastern perimeter. "Maintenance tunnel. Dad documented it years ago when Halcyon first built the facility." Samuel pressed ice against his swollen shoulder. "Assuming it's still accessible." "It connects to the main hangar's sub-basement. The tunnel was designed for fiber-optic cables, but it's wide enough for a person." Malik traced the route with his finger. 30-yard crawl. Comes up inside the building where cameras can't see it. Danica opened her laptop and began typing rapidly. "I'm establishing multiple transmission points. Live feed goes to Channel 7 News, the Denver Post, and every major automotive blog. Plus direct links to shareholders and victims' families." "Can Roland shut it down?" Samuel asked. "Not all of them simultaneously. I'm using redundant servers across 4 states." Her fingers never paused on the keyboard. "The moment we activate recording, everything gets broadcast in real time. No delays, no editing, no corporate filters." Malik pulled up the facility's vehicle control network. Dozens of test cars sat in organized rows throughout the compound. "Voss will have 6 guards minimum, maybe 8. I can use the autonomous vehicles to divide them." "You mean run them down?" Samuel's voice carried concern. "No. I redirect the cars to create barriers, block sight lines, force the guards into separate areas." Malik's tone remained steady. "I won't kill them, but I will isolate them." Samuel stood slowly, testing his injured arm. "I'm coming with you." "Your shoulder will heal. This won't." Samuel gestured at the blueprints. "I should have stopped this conspiracy 5 years ago. Nathaniel died because I failed." Danica looked up from her screen. "Federal support?" "Agent Martinez will position tactical teams 2 miles out," Samuel said. "They can't approach until we confirm Evelyn's exact location. Legal complications if they breach private property without concrete proof she's being held." "Proof we'll provide," Malik said grimly. He opened Nathaniel's archived code files, searching through thousands of lines of programming. His father had been methodical, documenting every system component. Hidden within the collision avoidance protocols, Malik found something unexpected. "There's a master override," he said quietly. "Dad embedded a dormant command in the original Dominion software." Danica moved beside him. "What kind of command?" Malik's eyes widened as he read the code structure. "Emergency stop. If activated, it freezes every vehicle running Dominion protocol, completely immobilizes them." "All of them?" Samuel asked. "Every car in their network?" "Every single one. Dad built it as a safeguard in case the system was compromised." Malik's voice carried wonder and grief. He knew this might happen. He prepared for it. Samuel checked his weapon and secured it beneath his jacket. Smart man, just like his son. Danica finished her transmission setup and closed her laptop. Broadcasting equipment is ready. Portable camera with satellite uplink. Once we're inside, the whole world watches. Malik gathered the blueprints and powered down his systems. The warehouse fell quiet except for the distant hum of highway traffic. Dawn was still 3 hours away, but the horizon showed the faintest hint of gray. Voss won't expect us to come straight at him, Malik said. Roland thinks he's won. Graham believes I'm finished. They're celebrating while Evelyn suffers. He shouldered his equipment bag and walked toward the exit. Samuel and Danica followed, their footsteps echoing in the empty space. Outside, an unmarked utility van waited in the parking lot. Samuel had acquired it from a federal motor pool, completely clean, no tracking devices, registration that wouldn't raise flags if stopped. 2 hours to the facility, Samuel said, settling into the driver's seat. We'll arrive just as the sun comes up. Malik climbed into the passenger seat, his laptop balanced on his knees. The desert highway stretched ahead, empty except for long-haul truckers and early commuters. At 3:15 in the morning, they pulled onto Interstate 25 and began driving south. The warehouse disappeared behind them as they entered the darkness between cities. The final confrontation was waiting in the desert. The pale light of dawn crept across the desert horizon as Samuel guided the van behind a jagged ridge of red sandstone. Below them, Halcyon's testing facility sprawled across the valley floor like a mechanical infection on the pristine landscape. Malik pressed binoculars to his eyes, studying the compound. 6 buildings, main hangar in the center, control tower on the east side. Guard rotations every 20 minutes, Samuel observed, checking his watch. 2 men at the main gate, 1 patrol vehicle circling the perimeter. Danica adjusted her satellite uplink and tested the camera feed. Broadcasting equipment is live. Everything we record goes straight to federal servers and 3 news networks. Samuel handed Malik a radio earpiece. I'll stay here and guide Agent Martinez's team when they arrive. Keep this channel open. Malik shouldered his equipment bag and started down the rocky slope toward the maintenance tunnel entrance. Danica followed, her camera recording their approach. The tunnel opening was concealed behind a concrete drainage pipe, exactly as the blueprints indicated. Inside, emergency lighting cast red shadows along the narrow passage. Malik opened his laptop and connected to Halcyon's internal network through a maintenance port. Security camera feeds appeared on his screen, dozens of angles showing empty corridors and testing bays. Disabling cameras in sequence, he whispered into his microphone, making it look like routine system glitches. He typed rapidly, causing cameras to shut down in timed intervals across different sections of the facility. To security monitors, it would appear as random technical failures rather than a coordinated attack. They emerged into a service corridor lined with pipes and electrical conduits. Malik checked his tablet, following the facility map toward the control tower. Their footsteps echoed softly on polished concrete floors. The control room door stood slightly open. Through the gap, Malik saw Evelyn tied to a metal chair, her face bruised but alert. She looked up as they entered, relief flooding her features. "Thank God," she breathed. Danica rushed to untie the restraints while Malik kept watch at the door. Heavy footsteps echoed from the main corridor, Voss's guards approaching fast. "They know we're here," Malik said grimly. He pulled out his phone and accessed Halcyon's test vehicle system. Across the facility, dozens of autonomous cars powered up simultaneously. He directed them through the corridors, creating moving barriers between his team and the approaching guards. "This way," he told Danica and Evelyn, leading them toward a service bay. 2 guards rounded the corner ahead, raising their weapons. Malik shoved Evelyn and Danica behind a support beam as gunfire erupted. Sparks flew from metal surfaces around them. The narrow service bay became a battlefield. Malik used the confined space to his advantage, grabbing a heavy wrench from a tool rack and swinging it against the first guard's knee. The man collapsed with a scream. The second guard lunged forward with a tactical baton. Malik ducked under the swing and drove his shoulder into the man's ribs, slamming him against a service door. His own bruised ribs sent fire through his chest, but he ignored the pain. The guard swung the baton again. Malik caught his wrist and twisted, using a door frame as leverage to force the weapon from his grip. He followed with a controlled strike to the man's solar plexus, dropping him to the floor. "Malik!" Danica's voice carried relief and fear. "Graham's here." Graham Whitlock stumbled into the service bay, blood seeping through his expensive shirt. His face was pale with terror and desperation. "I'll testify against Roland," he gasped. "Give you everything you need. The black box is hidden in—" The sharp crack of a gunshot echoed through the facility. Graham screamed and collapsed, clutching his shoulder as blood spread across the concrete floor. Roland Vance stepped into view, holding a smoking pistol. His refined appearance had vanished, replaced by cold calculation and barely controlled rage. "Nobody is testifying against anyone," Roland said calmly. Emergency klaxons began blaring throughout the complex. Heavy steel doors slammed shut across corridors, sealing off exit routes with metallic thunder. Roland's voice echoed from speakers mounted on the walls, amplified through the facility's intercom system. "Mr. Everhart, Ms. Rowe, Ms. Shaw, and our wounded Mr. Whitlock," Roland announced with mock politeness. "You have trespassed on private property and compromised sensitive technology. Unfortunately, you will not survive to face trial." The intercom crackled with static before continuing. "In approximately 10 minutes, you will experience a tragic autonomous vehicle malfunction. Multiple test cars will suffer simultaneous brake failures, resulting in a catastrophic collision that destroys this entire section of the facility. Federal investigators will find your remains and conclude that you died attempting to steal proprietary software." Graham moaned and tried to crawl toward cover, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Evelyn pressed against the wall, her eyes wide with terror. "Your deaths will be ruled accidental," Roland's voice continued through the speakers. "Just like Nathaniel's." The facility's main hangar erupted into mechanical chaos as dozens of test vehicles roared to life simultaneously. Engines screamed across the vast concrete floor, while autonomous cars accelerated along elevated tracks that crisscrossed the enormous space like a deadly maze. Malik felt the building vibrate beneath his feet as the automated systems engaged. Red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow, casting moving shadows between the racing vehicles above. "The broadcast equipment," Evelyn pointed toward a console near the far wall where their transmission gear sat dark and silent. Preston Hale emerged from behind a support column, his face twisted with rage and desperation. He charged directly at Danica as she moved toward the equipment. "You destroyed everything!" Preston screamed, swinging a heavy metal wrench at her head. Danica ducked and rolled behind a workstation, but Preston followed relentlessly. He smashed the wrench against computer monitors, sending sparks cascading across the floor. 30 years with this company," Preston's voice cracked with fury. "You ruined it all for some dead engineer and his worthless kid." Meanwhile, Nolan Voss stepped onto one of the moving test platforms that carried vehicles through safety simulations. The mechanical system moved slowly but steadily, creating a shifting battlefield of metal and machinery. "Time to finish what we started in the parking garage," Voss called to Malik over the roar of engines. Malik climbed onto an adjacent platform, keeping his distance as they moved parallel through the hangar. Voss was larger and stronger, but the narrow moving surface limited his ability to use brute force. Voss lunged across the gap between platforms. His fist caught Malik in the ribs, sending him stumbling backward against a test vehicle's hood. The impact drove the air from his lungs and sent pain shooting through his already bruised torso. Before Malik could recover, Voss grabbed his jacket and hurled him sideways. Malik crashed through a glass partition that separated the platform from an observation deck, landing hard among scattered safety equipment and shattered glass. Blood ran from cuts on his face and arms as he struggled to stand. Voss dropped down through the broken glass, his boots crunching on the debris. "Should have stayed in school, kid," Voss sneered. But Malik had been watching carefully. Every time Voss prepared to strike, his right shoulder dropped slightly first. The movement was subtle, but consistent, a tell that revealed his intentions a split second before each attack. Voss's shoulder dipped. Malik didn't try to dodge this time. Instead, he stepped forward into the punch, absorbing the blow against his left arm while grabbing Voss's wrist with both hands. Using Voss's own momentum against him, Malik pivoted and pulled, sending the larger man stumbling forward onto another moving platform. The automated safety system immediately detected a person in the test zone and deployed restraining barriers around Voss, trapping him as the platform continued its slow circuit. "Danica!" Evelyn's voice cut through the mechanical noise. Near the broadcast equipment, Evelyn had flanked Preston while he focused on attacking Danica. She struck him across the back of the head with a heavy tablet computer, dropping him to his knees. Danica immediately restrained his arms and shoved him away from the console. "Get the transmission running," Malik shouted as he jumped down from the platform. Evelyn's fingers flew across the controls, reactivating their live broadcast system. Red lights flickered to green as the signal went live, streaming directly to federal authorities, news networks, and the public. Roland's voice echoed from the central control room above the hangar floor. "You're too late. The evidence dies with you." Through the reinforced glass windows, Malik could see Roland holding the original black box, the device that contained proof of Nathaniel's murder and every victim who followed. Roland's hands moved across a master control panel. Every test vehicle in the facility suddenly changed direction, converging on the center of the hangar where Malik's group stood. The automated cars accelerated to maximum speed, their collision course designed to create a catastrophic impact that would obliterate everything in the target zone. Malik sprinted toward the central staircase leading to Roland's control room. The building shook as dozens of vehicles thundered along their tracks, all heading directly toward the same devastating point of impact. He reached the control console just as the first wave of vehicles approached the convergence point. His fingers found the hidden access panel his father had described in his notes, a safeguard built into the original code that only Nathaniel knew about. Malik entered the sequence, his father's birthday, his mother's maiden name, and the coordinates of their family home. The system accepted the override. Every vehicle in the facility stopped instantly, their brakes engaging with mechanical precision. The lead cars halted mere inches from colliding, their bumpers almost touching as they formed a perfect circle around the hangar's center. The sudden silence felt deafening after the roar of engines. On the live broadcast feed, Roland's recorded confession began playing automatically. His admission of ordering Nathaniel's death, the details of Dominion Protocol's victims, and the complete financial trail of the conspiracy. Banking records scrolled across screens while crash data revealed the true scope of the murder scheme. Heavy boots thundered through the facility as federal agents stormed the hangar from multiple entrances. Their tactical gear and weapons were drawn as they spread through the space, securing every exit. Roland burst from the control room, clutching the black box against his chest as he tried to reach a service door. But Malik positioned himself directly in the path, blocking the escape route. "It's over, Roland," Malik said quietly. Roland's refined mask had completely fallen away, replaced by the face of a cornered predator. "You have no idea what you've destroyed, boy, what you've cost me." "I know exactly what I've cost you," Malik replied. "Justice." Federal agents surrounded them with weapons trained on Roland. He looked at the black box in his hands, then at Malik, and finally at the agents closing in from all sides. His shoulders sagged in defeat as he let the device fall from his fingers. Malik caught it before it hit the concrete floor. "Roland Vance," the lead agent announced, "you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy, and terrorism." The handcuffs clicked shut around Roland's wrists as agents read him his rights. His eyes never left Malik's face, filled with hatred and disbelief that a 19-year-old had dismantled his empire. Malik held his father's black box tightly, finally possessing the evidence that would clear Nathaniel's name and ensure justice for every victim of Dominion Protocol. Ambulance lights painted the desert facility in flashing red and blue as paramedics loaded Preston onto a stretcher. His arm hung at an unnatural angle, and dark bruises covered his face where Malik's precise strikes had connected. He groaned with each movement, but remained conscious enough to glare at the agents preparing his arrest paperwork. Graham sat against an ambulance bumper while a medic cleaned the bullet wound in his shoulder. Blood had soaked through his expensive shirt, turning the white fabric crimson. Despite the pain etched across his face, his eyes held a calculating look as federal agents approached with handcuffs. "I want to make a deal," Graham said before they could speak. "I'll testify against Roland. Tell you everything about Dominion Protocol." The lead agent studied him coldly. "Your cooperation might help with sentencing, Mr. Whitlock, but it won't prevent charges for conspiracy, fraud, assault, and 17 counts of murder." Graham's face went pale as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The reality of his situation seemed to hit him all at once. His empire was gone, his reputation destroyed, and decades in prison awaited him. Voss required no medical attention, but 4 agents surrounded him as they led him to the transport vehicle. His military training had failed him against Malik's calculated intelligence, and now he walked in silence with the mechanical precision of a defeated soldier. Roland emerged last, flanked by federal marshals. His silver hair remained perfectly styled despite everything, but his eyes held the hollow look of a man who had lost more than money or freedom. He had lost the game itself. "Roland Vance," the marshal announced formally, "you are under arrest for murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit terrorism, securities fraud, and racketeering." As they loaded the 4 men into separate vehicles, Malik watched from beside Samuel and Danica. The black box containing his father's final evidence rested securely in Samuel's hands, the key piece that would ensure none of them escaped justice. "It's really over," Evelyn whispered, standing nearby with tears streaming down her face. "Nathaniel can finally rest." The convoy of federal vehicles disappeared into the desert distance, carrying away the men who had turned cutting-edge safety technology into a murder weapon. Behind them, the testing facility stood silent and empty, its automated systems finally shut down for good. Within hours, news outlets across the country began reporting the arrests. Roland's vast financial network crumbled as federal agents seized accounts, froze assets, and traced money through dozens of shell corporations. The man who had controlled billions found himself with nothing but a prison cell, and the knowledge that a 19-year-old had outsmarted him completely. Graham's detailed confession, delivered from his hospital bed, provided investigators with a roadmap of the entire conspiracy. He named corrupt board members, identified offshore accounts, and revealed the location of additional evidence Roland had hidden. His cooperation earned him a reduced sentence, but not redemption. The families of 17 victims would never forgive the man who had profited from their loss. The Halcyon Vector Board of Directors faced immediate dissolution as federal investigators uncovered their complicity in the fraud. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.